Chair of the Portfolio Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable Baraza, Chair of the Portfolio Committee on Industry and Commerce, Honorable Sako, Honorable Members of Parliament here present. Let me say really at the outset that we appreciate your presence here in such large numbers today, and to say that you are a very important ingredient in terms of the implementation of the protocol we are talking about today. So thank you very much for coming. Senior government officials, representatives of the African Union Commission, representatives of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, captains of industry and commerce, cooperating partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. I said a very good morning to you, I think we are warming up now. Thank you very much. It is a great honor and privilege for me to welcome you all to this very important National Consultative Forum on the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we are gathered to hear your views and contributions as part of the process of developing a national strategy for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. The national strategy will seek to maximize the benefits of the agreement while minimizing the adverse effects. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, from the outset to thank the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa for availing funds and technical support to make this forum a reality. I am actually very encouraged to hear from UNECA that they are not going to leave us here, that they are going to walk with us all the way. Thank you very much indeed, UNECA. Thank you. I'm sure by now you are all aware that Zimbabwe signed the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area on the 21st of March 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda, during the AU Extraordinary Summit, which adopted the said protocol. Zimbabwe became the 23rd member state to deposit the instrument of ratification with the depository, who is the chair of the African Union Commission, on the 24th of May 2019. And of course, this would not have been possible had our parliament not expedited the process. So we thank you very much, honorable members of parliament, for this. Ladies and gentlemen, the agreement establishing the Continental Free Trade Area aims at creating a single market for goods and services facilitated by movement of persons in order to deepen the economic integration of the African continent in accordance with the Pan-African vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, enshrined in Agenda 2063. The protocol will also cover other disciplines. It will go beyond trade in goods and services to include investment, competition, and intellectual property. The Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will bring together all the 55 member states of the African Union, covering a market of more than 1.2 billion people and a combined gross domestic product of more than 3.4 trillion, as my colleagues who spoke before me said. In terms of participating countries, the protocol will be the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Estimates from the Economic Commission for Africa suggest that the African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to boost intra-African trade by over 50% through elimination of import duties. The protocol which officially came into force on 30 May 2019, is expected to be a key engine for economic growth, industrialization, sustainable development in Africa, in line with the United Nations General Assembly Agenda 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. The agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area covers the protocols on trade in goods, trade in services, and rules and procedures of settlement of disputes. However, negotiations on rules of origin are still ongoing, as well as preparation of market access offers. Since the signing of the agreement at the AU Summit in July 2018, 5 priority sectors have been adopted, and these sectors will be negotiated, namely transport, communication, financial, tourism, and business services. These will be liberalized as part of the first round of negotiations. Distinguished guests, you will agree with me that for any trade agreement to deliver its transformative economic potential and expected outcomes, there is need to undertake deliberate actions and deploy necessary efforts through an effective and integrated national strategy to realize the benefits from the trade agreement. It is also critical to complement the strategy with an effective monitoring and evaluation framework that will track progress on the implementation of the agreement. As government, we realized that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will not be self-implementing. We therefore decided to develop a national strategy to implement the agreement. We are grateful once again to UNECA, who responded to our call for technical and financial assistance to support us in developing the national strategy. It is in this context that we have recruited a consultant to lead national activities and support the development of the national strategy for Zimbabwe. Holding this forum, where we are gathered here today, is one of the first national activities in the process of developing the African Free Trade Area National Strategy. Following this national forum, the consultant, Ms. Stella Mushiri, who is here today, accompanied by UNECA, will undertake a sector consultations starting tomorrow, the 21st of June, up to the 28th of June 2019. Kindly get in touch with her during this forum to set up or confirm appointments. I urge you all to give the consultant all the necessary support in her assignment. This will ensure that the strategy is not just a consultant's document, but a document that all of us as key stakeholders can call our own. I want to assure you that as our stakeholders, we greatly appreciate and value all your insightful inputs and contributions. As the Master of Ceremony has said, our future is in our hands. Today's process is crucial as the Ministry works with stakeholders and our consultant to make trade work. Let us consider the numerous market access opportunities to be offered by the CFTA, tripartite, and the existing trade agreements where the country is party to. We need to embark on aggressive export drive to raise the much-needed foreign currency for our country. Ladies and gentlemen, the CFTA national strategy is expected to identify where comparative advantages lie for export diversification and priority value chains development in order to support industrialization and maximize trade potential in the context of this important agreement. Cross-cutting issues to be considered in the strategy include gender mainstreaming, youth, environmental and climate change, as well as new technology developments. Government is fully aware of the challenges faced by the manufacturing sector and understands the potential risks that come with trade liberalization. Hence, we entered a reservation on the modalities for tariff liberalization, and we are making necessary negotiations with other member states for a longer tariff phase-down period of 15 years rather than the current 5 years for developing countries as per the adopted modalities. The longer tariff phase-down period is if granted, will provide policy space to manage the impact of tariff phase-down in such a way as to nurture local industries as well as, as they are retooling and growing their capacity in preparation for continental competition. The country registered the reservation on the tariff modalities together with other 6 countries. The other countries are Comoros, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Malawi, Madagascar, and Zambia. The group is known as the Group of 7. The proposal by Zimbabwe among the G7 is already before the AU summit, awaiting summit decision. The decision by summit is fundamental, as this would be the basis on which Zimbabwe will develop its tariff offer. Zimbabwe's position on the tariff modalities under the ACFTA is informed by the difficulties the country is experiencing in implementing its tariff liberalization commitments under SADC, where the country has applied for special dispensation for derogation on the outstanding tariff commitments. The application is, however, still under consideration by the SADC member states. Thus, the country needs to ensure that there is harmonization of the country's position at regional and continental levels. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to address the funding challenges facing our local companies, government through the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is seeking lines of credit to support the manufacturing sector so that they can participate in the export markets and generate the much needed foreign currency. Exports have the world over been recognized as key in the development of the nation's economy. For Zimbabwe, the export performance has largely been subdued, falling short of its potential to drive economic growth. A number of factors, including supply-side competitiveness and trade facilitation challenges, among others, have affected the ease of doing export business and hence poor export performance. The suppressed production has led the country to rely on importation of key raw materials for its industry and other essentials such as medicines, which drain the scarce foreign exchange in the country. The global environment is consistently changing, and our companies are lagging behind in terms of adoption of new technologies, research and development, and innovation so that we can export more and deal with our trade deficit. Our exporters need to strategize and keep abreast with the developments in the global market and leverage on these changes. It is my sincere hope that Once the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement national strategy is finalized, the private sector and the public sector will work together in close collaboration to ensure the program and activities identified therein are implemented. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade is mandated to coordinate and implement Zimbabwe's foreign policy. One of its core functions include the promotion, development, and facilitation of international trade. Within this function, the Ministry is undertaking a number of various activities aimed at improving the level of Zimbabwe's exports. These activities include the development of the National Trade Policy 2019 to 2023 and Export Strategy 2019 to 2023, trade negotiations, implementation of trade-related projects in collaboration with development partners, trade promotion, and ease of doing export business reforms. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade is in the process of finalizing the National Trade Policy and Export Strategy and the accompanying implementation, monitoring, and evaluation frameworks for Zimbabwe. Ministerial and cabinet approval of the draft policy and strategy documents is being sought to facilitate the launch and implementation, which we hope would not be very far. The main thrust of the policy and strategy is to increase productivity, enhance value addition, diversify exports, and improve the human, institutional, and financial capacity for the development and growth of value-added exports from the manufacturing and services sectors. The National Export Strategy prioritizes the following sectors: horticulture, textiles, clothing, leather and leather products, food and beverages, wood and furniture, fertilizers, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, tourism, education, medical services, financial services, construction, and engineering-related services. Specific strategies will be developed for these sectors with focus on enhancing productivity, improving competitiveness, and diversifying the country's export basket. The National Trade Policy and the Export Strategy will complement the National Industrial Policy. In terms of trade negotiations, Zimbabwe has been actively engaged in various trade arrangements under COMESA, EAC, and SADC tripartite agreement, SADC, COMESA, ESA-UK, EPA, ESA-EU, EPA, and a number of other bilateral negotiations to improve and secure the country's market access opportunities. It is important to note that most of the legal texts adopted by the African Free Trade Area Agreement borrowed largely from the tripartite text, that Zimbabwe continued to be guided and to improve on positions and provisions in the tripartite agreement, SADC and COMESA agreements. Turning to trade promotion, the ministry, in collaboration with Zimtrade, coordinates the participation of companies at various regional and international trade fairs and exhibitions. This gives local companies the opportunity to market their products for export into the export markets. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the national strategy for the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area will take into account the realities of our trade capacity, constraints and resources needed to meet the demands and realities in the international trade environment. It will enable all stakeholders to contribute to the growth of the nation through the development of its trade. In this regard, we aim for diversification of the economy whilst consolidating the gains achieved in the traditional export markets. Together we can build a Zimbabwe that is focused on growth of international trade as a key player in the global value chains. However, this cannot be done, or rather we cannot do this alone. We recognize the private sector as the driving force for our industrialization, with government providing an enabling environment. Ladies and gentlemen, your full participation and contribution to this national forum is of utmost importance as we seek to make trade work as an engine for economic growth in Zimbabwe as envisaged in Vision 2030 and our Transitional Stabilization Program. As all politicians often say, with these few remarks, I declare the forum officially open. I thank you for your attention.